the way, there's one important point to mention here. One challenge that we're facing in recent eras with Shias and following their Maraje is that in the last few decades, in fact, we could say in the last century, maybe in the last 100 years or so, Taqlid in the eyes of some people and some communities, and there are political factors behind it, social factors, people have started to develop an identity around their marja, such that them following their marja becomes part of their identity. They feel passionate about it. They start fighting with other groups. This is not sanctioned by the Imams of Ahlul Bayt. The Imams of Ahlul Bayt encouraged us to refer to the scholars. But remember, at the end of the day, you're just following the expert opinion of a scholar. Don't, give this infallible image to the scholar and develop an identity around the scholar or this marja, such that if anybody has a different opinion, you take it upon yourself and you make it a mission to attack them, to accuse them of deviation and corruption, and all of you are wrong except my marja is right. That's wrong. That's not something the Imams of Ahlul Bayt have sanctioned. We do see this in our era, and it creates tension. And a lot of times this tension is created by the followers of the marja, not the marja himself. The followers start feeling passionate, and then they get into trouble. The hadith says, respect the scholars. They're God's greatest gift for a community. But just be careful. Don't idolize the marja. In the end, the marja is a servant of God, just serving you and giving you the fatwas, the expert opinions. Don't idolize them. They're not infallible. Don't ever put them at the rank of the ma'soom. Don't ever put them at the rank of an infallible. Now, when it comes to political views of the marja, even though they're guides, remember, most scholars historically said, when we look at the hadiths about taqlid, follow them when it comes to religious matters, especially legal issues. If your marja has a political, social understanding, they have a certain political perspective, is it binding on me as their follower to follow that political perspective? Is it binding on me? No, it's not. The vast majority of Marja are very clear on that. They're like, yes, if you trust your marja as a political expert in a political field, fine. You'd like to follow them, but you don't have to. Do you have to follow the social views of your marja? No, you don't have to. You follow your marja in deen. What's halal, what's haram, legal details. Yes, get guidance from them because they also have experience. But I think what's happening today is people in all of these areas, they feel very passionate about their marja's views, and then we start seeing problems in society. So no, nowhere did the Ahlul Bayt say, go and follow the Shia scholars in every single field. In science, and politics, and social issues, and psychological issues. No, follow the experts. The marja is a psychological expert, follow him in a psychological opinion. If he's an expert in social matters, fine, follow him. But if he's not, and not every marja is. A lot of marja will tell you, look, this is my area of expertise. I'm not a psychologist. Don't expect me to act like a psychologist and give you words that psychologists give you. I'm not a political scientist. Yes, I do know where religion and politics intersect, but I'm not a political scientist. He may be, some of them are. You'd be surprised how well achieved some of them are, and really having experience in multiple fields. But in the end, keep that in mind. You're following them in legal matters. Yes, there is one branch of Wilayat al-Faqih that gives full authority to the jurist, that is a proponent of following the Wali al-Faqih or the Marja in every single field. In fact, if the Marja tells you, bring me a cup of water or bring me that bottle, it's wajib on you. It's like the Imam of your time telling you, bring me that bottle. Mainstream Shia scholars and the seminaries historically have not accepted that much authority. But there are some proponents of that in the seminaries, but they're the minority. Historically, scholars have rejected that much authority. The marja tells you jump off the cliff. Do you have to follow that order? Some believe in that, yes. Some proponents of a special branch of Wilayat al-Faqih might say yes. the imam, the scholar sits in the position of the imam. If the imam were to tell you, you had to accept that command. He's representing the imam in every field. But most scholars have not accepted that. They've rejected this full-fledged authority of a faqih. Yes.
As far as what you mentioned, Sayed, now, even within the last 2 centuries, last 200 years, things have been developing, even in our field, as far as the usulis go. And do you see, as far as the new challenges that are being faced, which are some of the examples that you just mentioned, even elements of those challenges are slowly, gradually going away, where there is more consensus, and as time passes by, some of these gaps and differences.
There's more consensus on what?
On different issues, where maybe not all Marajas could be on the same page. Different controversial issues from that standpoint, even if it would be Wilayat al-Faqih speaking. But as far as the political views or social views over time, as time passes by over the next few decades, do you see it would be getting more streamlined, or some of those gaps would be going away? It's just one of those things that we are in that era right now. We're noticing these challenges. But I would say that within the last 30 years, for example, there are some gaps that have been going away, and things have been, more unity has been getting built as a result of it. It's just a matter of time that some of these things would, controversial issues would go away. Would you, any comments on that?
It's a given that in any time and era, you will have differences of opinion and some controversial issues, even at the seminary level. That's a given, because you've got many, many experts looking at multiple fields. So it's natural. But what sometimes ends up happening in the seminaries and in those, scholarly circles, is that you will find one scholar or one marja who's a proponent of a certain perspective or an idea. They come with such amazing knowledge and convincing evidence, such that after them, within some years, you find the mainstream experts find their views so acceptable, so logical, so sound, so strong, that you find some of those gaps being filled, and that maybe there seems to be consensus on that controversial issue. But it requires a pillar like that in the seminaries to really give momentum to an idea. This has happened, by the way, in our even fiqh history. For 700 years, scholars' understanding of hadith was that if a well becomes najis, like a drop of blood falls in it, all of it becomes najis. Even if the color doesn't change, the taste doesn't change, the smell doesn't change, because of their understanding of some hadiths. Then al-Hilli came 7 centuries ago, so 7 centuries after that. 700 years ago, Hilli came, and he was a pillar in knowledge. The man was an expert. He authored over 1,000 books. Just imagine the size of this guy's knowledge. So he re-examined the texts, and he was able to prove in the seminary that all these hadiths that tell you need to remove water from the well for it to become pure, it's mustahab. Because now there is some contamination and people would drink that water. So by removing water from the well, new water comes in to fill in the well, and that becomes more healthy. Otherwise, the hadiths that state a qur of water, a large body of water, cannot become najis unless it changes in color, of course. Those hadiths are clear that the well does not become najis. So don't treat it as najis. He was able to demonstrate that so powerfully, such that after him, every scholar basically followed suit. This is just an example of a fiqh gap being filled. Sometimes socially, politically, you might have some gaps, and then a pillar of knowledge comes amongst the scholars, and they just change the perspective of even the seminaries, because they bring a perspective that maybe others had not seen so clearly. That sometimes does happen. Not with every case, but with some cases it does.
But the one challenge that you mentioned, Sayyidina, that we are facing today is as far as the followers of these Marajas, where they feel a sense of identity that they have built around the scholars. I mean, like you said, the imams do not sanction that, but I think that's open and obvious if you follow any of these narrations and copy, for example, where it warns you many times of these different aspects that you should stay away from, such as having respect for all scholars. But could it be due to the lack of knowledge of these followers, where they are essentially, since they've built that identity, they feel strongly about issues without...
I believe it's multiple factors that make people idolize their marja to an unhealthy level. It's multiple factors. One of it is ignorance. They don't even know why they're following or what taqlid even is. They have not looked at what we've discussed in these courses. Sometimes it's ego. When you follow a marja and then your ego kicks in and you feel a sense of ownership. Well, my marja said so. You want to prove somebody else wrong or start forming a group around your marja's identity. It becomes a sense of ownership that you have, right? An attachment. You develop an attachment and you're just fighting for that attachment. We have to be very careful to draw a line between respecting the scholar and accepting their guidance, but not to be too attached such that we start feeding our ego. I'll give you a very simple example. Let's say you follow a marja. Okay? Let's not bring any names. Let's say you follow a marja. Muhammad is a marja. You follow him. Why do you follow him? Because it's proven to you that he's the most knowledgeable. Inshallah, in our next class, briefly we'll examine why we need to follow the most knowledgeable scholar, and then we end the discussion on taqlid, and we will examine other discussions in this course. So let's say it's been proven to you that Muhammad, the marja, is the most knowledgeable, so you start following them. If 2 years later, it was proven to you that another marja is now more knowledgeable, and so you want to switch, do you have difficulty in switching or no? If you find yourself having difficulty in switching, no, you're attached to this marja, you feel passionate, you've idolized this marja, that's a warning sign. Because sometimes you will cause fitna in society because of this attachment. And you'll put down other fellow Shias. But if you say, look, I followed this marja because he was an expert. And he was a source of guidance. Now, this person is my expert. It's like switching your doctor. When there's a reason to switch, of course. You can't just pick and choose. We'll talk about that next week. Right? You should not feel any difficulty. I followed Muhammad because he was, I believed, based on the evidence available, that he was the most knowledgeable. Now I have evidence that this person is most knowledgeable. Follow him overnight. Because remember, you're not following Muhammad or Zayd or Ali or whoever. You're following Imam Muhammad al-Baqer alayhi salam. You're following Ja'far ibn Muhammad al-Sadiq. You're following Quran. You're following the Prophet. You're following Allah. Don't idolize these individuals. They're just messengers that take you to the Ahlul Bayt. Nothing more. So you should switch overnight if that's proven to you. That's the challenge. I think one of the challenges in our taqlid system today is that people have developed identities around their maraja. And then you see people spending endless resources, publishing thousands of dollars or millions of dollars of posters and images. And to a healthy level, it's fine. Because remember, these maraja are source of guidance, and when you strengthen that position, you strengthen overall society. But when it becomes unhealthy and competition and who can get the bigger portrait, on the Arba'in walk from Najaf and Karbala, and millions of dollars being wasted like that, we have a problem. I'll be very honest, we have a problem here. The followers are creating this problem. Don't idolize the marja. Respect them. They are your sources of guidance. They are the experts. So one indication is, if you were to switch that taqlid, if it's proven to you X person is more knowledgeable, do you have that unhealthy attachment? Then that tells you there's something wrong. The switch should be easy, because you accepted this marja as an expert. There's another better expert. You should immediately, without even having any hesitation, follow the better expert. And that will show you that your taqlid is healthy. But for some people, it's unhealthy.
But it is common consensus that as far as the scholar, this is not an issue perhaps amongst the the Marajas.
It's the followers. Exactly. Like I said, it's the followers who create this. In fact, the Maraja themselves, the vast majority of them, I've seen them. I myself have witnessed. Sometimes the followers do these acts and activities and they use resources in a way to make the image of their marja bigger, right? And to do more advertising. I've seen the marja with pain. Salaamu Alaikum. With pain, he condemns that. And he tells even the people in his office who are connected, he's like, I swear by Allah, I'm unhappy with this. Tell them, I don't accept this. This is unacceptable. Do something about it. But even the Prophet and the Imams, people gave them a hard time. Did all the Sahaba of the Prophet listen to the Prophet? What does Quran say? Tell me. Do you have a better leader than the Prophet? Did all the Sahaba listen to the Prophet? Did some of the Sahaba give a bad image of the Prophet? Yes. Sometimes the Prophet would dispatch some of these companions to do something. They'd end up killing other people. We mentioned some of them in the biography class. The Prophet would be upset. He would tell them, why? Why'd you do this? Or sometimes they come up with their own decisions, or even the Prophet and the Imams, not all their followers followed them. Don't expect the Maraji people to, seamlessly just follow them and accept every instruction that they... No, a lot of people, I've seen them challenging the Maraja. When they feel passionate about something, I've seen them even challenging their Marja, because they've now developed an identity around it. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وآله الطاهرين.